Hello students, I believe everybody has gone through the material and the video lecture and the assignment as well. So in the assignment, the last question I had intentionally tricked it a little, where I had given you the arrival time which I had not discussed in my video lecture. So what needs to be done when there is an arrival time given? Let me show it to you now. The arrival time does not make any change in the assignment of the CPU to the process, but where is the contribution of this arrival time? The contribution of this arrival time is during the calculation of your waiting time. So you can notice it here. I have prepared the Gantt chart. So we have process P1 followed by P2, P3 and finally P4. So the order in which it comes, it will be the same order in which it shall be assigned the CPU. Now what happens when I am calculating my waiting time? I need to deduct the arrival time. So when I say process P1, the process P1 has waited, or I can say it has not at all waited, and the arrival is 0, so eventually the waiting time is 0. When I talk about process P2, previously when no arrival time was given, so when I say it is process P2, the waiting time was straight away 10. But now that is not the case, because P2 had not at all arrived. So P2 has only arrived at the first millisecond. So 0 to 1, it was not at all there in the system. So I will be deducting this arrival time from my waiting time. The same is applicable for all. When I talk about P3, so P3 has waited for 39 milliseconds. So but P3 has arrived to the system only at the second interval of time. So I deduct that -2 and then I get my waiting time as 37. So is for P4. P4, it has waited for 42 milliseconds. But because it has not arrived until the third interval of time, so I deduct that and calculate my waiting time. There is no change in the calculation of the turnaround time. The turnaround time is as before. It is the similar calculation that will be followed. And arrival time has no contribution towards the calculation of your turnaround time. So the average waiting time is 21.25. The next scheduling algorithm that we have after your FCFS is your shortest job first scheduling. We say this is one of the best scheduling algorithm because it gives us the minimum average waiting time. But let us see what are the other disadvantages. What is the algorithm all about? Is this algorithm really practically possible to be implemented? Now talking about your shortest job first. What do I mean by shortest job first scheduling? Here I consider the criteria for my scheduling is the burst time. So the process with the smallest burst time will be the first process to be executed on the CPU. I shall always order the process from small to big. So whichever process has the smallest burst time will be the first process that shall be executed on the CPU. Now, is your SJFS preemptive or non-preemptive? when I talk about your FCFS, it is clearly a non-preemptive type of scheduling. What is it with SJFS? Is it preemptive or non-preemptive? We have both the versions. We have the non-preemptive version as well as we have the preemptive version. What happens in the non-preemptive version? What happens in the preemptive version? In the non-preemptive version, usually we try to sort the process in the order small to big and then give it to the CPU one by one. That is, the smallest process shall be assigned. And in the preemptive version, let me say, for example, I have my process P1 with the burst time 10 and I have process P2 with the burst time 5, and the arrival, let me take it as 0 and 1. Now if process P1 is executing on the CPU, it is arrived at the 0th interval. At the first interval, I have my process P2 that enters the system with the smaller burst time. So what happens? I compare with the process that is executing, the burst time of the process that is executing with the process that is arrived on the system. Now the process that is arrived on the system has the smaller burst time than the process that is executing on the CPU. So as the preemption method tells, I forcefully remove that process and assign it to a process with the smaller burst time. So I shall be preempting process P1 and assigning the CPU to process P2. If I take the vice versa case of the same, now if I say process P1 has a burst time 5 and process P2 has the burst time 10. If that is the case, when process P2 arrives on the system, process P1 is allowed to continue its execution because that is the process with the smaller burst time. Now let us take up an example to see how it is done. And your preemptive SJFS is also called as shortest remaining time first scheduling. So students, be careful in your examinations. There are chances they could be asking preemptive SJFS or they may be asking SRTF. So you should be knowing what is SRTF. So the preemptive version of your shortest job first is nothing but your SRTF. So look into the question. If the arrival is given, how you should calculate. We will take up further examples. We will see how it is calculated in preemption, in non-preemption, when there is arrival time, when there is no arrival time. Now let me quickly take the snapshot. Now this is a version of your non-preemptive scheduling. So in your non-preemptive scheduling, we say that once the process is allocated to the CPU, it shall not give until it has completed the execution. You can notice here I have my process P1, P2, P3, P4 and I have different arrival times. Now process P1 is allocated the CPU and the process P1 has arrived at the 0th interval and process P1 has the burst time of 7. At the second interval of time, that is at this time, I have my process P2 that is arrived on the system. Even though P2 has arrived on the system, I am not preempting it. As I told you, it is a non-preemptive version. Now this P2 has to wait until it completes its execution. So P1 has a burst time of 7. Until it completes the execution, it has to wait. Now meanwhile, when process P1 is completing its execution, by the 5th interval of time, I have all the 3 processes that has arrived on the system. I have all these 3 processes that has arrived on the system. So now what I do, I will be sorting these 3 processes in the order small to big. So the process with the smallest burst time will be the first process that shall be assigned the CPU. Now you can see there is a tie between two processes, that is I have process 2 and process 4 that has the same burst time. Now what could be the tiebreaker for this? I will use a tiebreaker as your FCFS. So whichever process arrived first shall be given the CPU. This is your non-preemptive version of your SJFS, and you can see the calculation of your waiting time. Now let me look into the preemptive. Okay, now let us address to your preemptive version of your SJFS, which is also called as your shortest remaining time first, that is SRTS. Now what happens in this preemptive version? Let me first illustrate you the Gantt chart that is prepared. Now at the 0th interval of time, I don't have any other process in the system except your P1. So because P1 is the only process that is available on the system, I shall immediately assign that to the CPU. After 2 interval of time, I have my process P2 that is arrived, which has the burst time 4. So now P1 has completed 2, so the burst time of P1 is 5 and the burst time of P2 is 4, which happens to be smaller than P1. So immediately process P1 is preempted from the CPU and we assign it to your process P2. Now when process P2 is executing, at the 4th interval of time, I have process P3 that enters the system with the burst time 1. Again, it would have completed 2, and then now here P2 has completed 2 burst cycles and P1 is with 1 burst time. Even then P3 happens to be the smaller burst time, so I remove process P2 and assign it to process P3. Now at the 5th interval of time, I have all the process. So compared to process P4, compared to process P4, P2 and P1, P2 has the smaller burst time, so I shall be assigning that to P2, and then P4 would be the smaller one, and then finally your P1. So it we make sure that all the process completes its burst time. Now calculating your waiting time is a little trickier here. Previously, we only saw up till what time a process was waiting and we took that as the waiting time. But here that is not the case. Probably there are two considerations you should make. Let me take the first process. The first process has waited for 11 milliseconds, but I say the waiting time is 9. How did I arrive with the waiting time 9? Here is the calculation. Whenever I am calculating the waiting time, there are two things that I have to consider here. One is the arrival time, second is the previous occurrence of the process in the system or your Gantt chart. Now, P1 has waited for 11 milliseconds and P1 has completed 2 milliseconds previously, and then the arrival time is 0. I come up with the waiting time of P1 to be 9. Now talking about your process P2. So P2's waiting time, we say it is 1. How is it 1? P2 has waited for 5 milliseconds and then P2 has completed 2 milliseconds previously and it has arrived at the second millisecond. So deducting all that, I get the waiting time of P2 to be 1. And P3, we have P3 that is waited for 4 milliseconds, but the arrival is on the 4th millisecond itself, so it is a 0. P4 has waited for 7 milliseconds, but the arrival is at the 5th millisecond. We don't have P4 arrived any time before, so it is the waiting time is 2 milliseconds. So that is about your preemptive shortest job first or shortest remaining time first scheduling. Let me take another example so that you understand the algorithm better. Now what happens when there is no burst time, arrival time that is assigned? I have only the burst time and the process. So what do I do in the non-preemptive version? So there are only two things given. I have the number of process and I have the burst time that is given. So I shall be sorting the process based on the burst time. So how do I do that? So my first process would be P4 and my second process would be P1 and my third process would be P3 and my fourth process would be P4. So I shall be reordering it in this fashion and I shall be doing my Gantt chart. You can see the same here. So I have process P4, P1, P3 and finally P2. So the calculation of your waiting time and turnaround time is simpler here because I don't have the arrival time, I don't have a previous occurrence of the process in the system or the Gantt chart. So it is the waiting time and turnaround time, the calculations are straight just like your previous scheduling algorithm. So I have my waiting time to be average waiting time to be 7 and my turnaround time to be 30. Turnaround time I take when the process has completed its execution. So P1 has completed it at 9, P2 has completed it at 24, P3 has completed it at 60, P4 has completed it at 3. Now when I say it is a preemptive version, arrival time would be a must criteria for me to know at how could I preempt it. So in this fashion. So how would my Gantt chart be? So at the first arrival time, there is no other process in the system. I am giving process P1 to the CPU, but then I have process P2 with a lower burst time that arrives. So I preempt your process, I preempt your process P1 and give it to the process P2, and P2 continues its execution because that is smaller than the other processes that is there. Let us take a look at the Gantt chart. So I have process P1 that is executing, then it is given to process P2 and by the time P2 completes its execution, I have other processes that is arrived on the system. So I shall give it in the order P4, P1 and P3. As discussed earlier, how do I calculate my waiting time? P1 has waited for 10 milliseconds and the arrival time is 0, and the previous occurrence, it has occurred here for 1 millisecond. So I get my waiting time of process P1 to be 9. I think the other waiting times are quite direct. You only deduct the arrival time. So for this particular snapshot, I have my average waiting time to be 6.5 and the turnaround time to be 14.5. You can check the same thing, you can check the same experiment, you can check the same snapshot with your other scheduling algorithm that we have discussed previously, that is your FCFS. You can see the waiting time is definitely less in your SJFS than compared to your FCFS. Now, what is the disadvantage of your shortest job first scheduling algorithm? Now you can see here, all this that we are doing is for the sake of illustration. For the sake of illustration, I know the data very well in advance. I know there is a process P2 that is arriving. I know that the process P2 is actually having the burst time that is smaller and all this. But in a practical case, we cannot predict what could be the burst time of the process that is coming ahead. Is the burst time of the process coming ahead smaller, or is the burst time of the process coming ahead larger? And again, after it is arrived, to take the burst time, to compare it with it, all this is quite tedious. Though this is one of the best scheduling algorithms which gives us a very minimum average waiting time, this is not practically implemented in any of the operating system due to its disadvantages because of its prediction. There are algorithms, there are equations that are given to predict the burst time, but the accuracy of that is not very high. So though it is one of the good algorithms, predicting ahead is quite difficult, and this algorithm is not very popular.